Since I own a GoPro, I have not only used it for videos, but also frequently for photos. The extremely wide-angle lens and of course the waterproof and shockproof body makes it possible to take photos that you can't always take in this form with a smartphone or another camera. In addition to minor improvements of the image quality, GoPro also revised the Superphoto Mode and the HDR Mode this year. In this video, I will compare the quality of the photos of the new GoPro Hero 8 with the quality of the photos of the Hero 7 Black. Of course, I will also have a look at the HDR Mode and the Superphoto Mode. For current prices and offers for the Hero 8, I have put some links in the video description. My name is Werner, I live in the Italian Alps and this channel is about filmmaking tutorials, GoPro and other consumer cameras. If you're interested in these topics, consider subscribing and have fun with this video. If you look at these first photos which are shot in the standard mode, you can see that the photo of the Hero 8 is quite different from the photo of the Hero 7. Similar to the video mode, the photo of the Hero 8 has a bit more contrast and also more saturation. At the same time, the white balance seems to have changed a bit. Actually, all photos of the Hero 8 appear a little warmer, while the Hero 7 chooses a slightly cooler white balance. However, I can hardly see any difference in the details and sharpness. Overall, I find the changes positive. Actually, in the standard mode, I always like the image of the Hero 8 slightly better, even if the difference is rather small. Here I compared two RAW files in Lightroom. The images look similarly sharp. The image of the Hero 7, which can be seen here on the left, looks a bit more saturated. But that doesn't really matter. The RAW files are basically intended for editing. Let's have a look at the Superphoto Mode now. In this mode, the photo is automatically processed by the camera. According to GoPro, the photo is analyzed by the camera and the best possible processing is applied. That means HDR, tone mapping or noise reduction. Let's take a look at some examples. Here you can see a comparison between the standard mode and the Superphoto Mode. As you can see, the photo shot in the Superphoto Mode has much more contrast and clarity. It has much more punch. This is a comparison to the Superphoto Mode of the Hero 7. There are clear differences in the white balance. The Hero 7 image has more purple tones, while the Hero 8 image looks more yellow. However, the Superphoto Mode does not always lead to this result. As I said earlier, the camera decides how the image is processed. Here the camera has decided for the HDR look. Dark areas are brightened and very bright areas are darkened. In addition, the image seems to have more yellow tones. It also looks more saturated. The result of the Hero 7 in this case is by far not so apparent. With this image, however, the camera opted for more clarity and contrast. The result is similar to the first image. However, the Superphoto Mode doesn't always seem to work optimally on the Hero 8. In this case, for example, already dark areas are further darkened. The overexposed sky now appears blue. The result is not optimal. The Hero 7, on the other hand, only opts for very minor processing for this image in Superphoto Mode. Also in this case, the Superphoto Mode of the Hero 8 led to the same result. However, this problem has only occurred rarely so far. If you activate the HDR mode, several photos with different exposures will be overlaid. This increases the dynamic range of the photo. More details appear in the brighter and darker areas of the photo. It is problematic when the camera is moved while shooting. This can lead to an unattractive ghosting effect. The HDR mode should have been improved, however, also to solve the ghosting problem. As you can see here, the dark areas of the HDR image have been brightened up and the bright areas slightly darkened. This allows you to see more details in the very bright and very dark areas of the image. In contrast to the Superphoto Mode, this effect is forced in the HDR mode. These photos were all taken handheld. The branches at the top appear slightly blurred in the magnification of the HDR image. But the real ghosting effect is not visible. With the HDR image of the Hero 7, however, the ghosting effect can be seen. In the magnification, you can see it if you look at the leaves. Altogether, the HDR images of the Hero 8 look more yellowish and saturated than the HDR images of the Hero 7. Here I moved the GoPro while taking an HDR image, and in fact no ghosting effect can be seen. But the image looks very blurry. With the Hero 7 the image is sharper.
But you can see the ghosting effect if you look at the leaves at the top. Both results are not optimal, so you should still keep the camera as steady as possible when shooting in HDR. This does not change with the Hero8.
Finally, I would like to compare a few photos with the night mode in low light conditions.
When you look at the water, you can see that the GoPro chooses a longer exposure time. On the other hand, the image shows hardly any noise. I have the impression that the Hero8 has chosen a slightly longer exposure time than the Hero7. You can see this when you look at the waterfall. But the image of the Hero7 is slightly sharper and shows more details. The image of the Hero8 looks bluer and a bit more saturated. In this case, the image of the Hero7 is clearly sharper. The image of the Hero8 looks a bit muddy and blurred. Both cameras have problems with the lights, which lead to these unpleasant results. Here too, the result is the same. The image of the Hero8 has significantly more blue tones. The image of the Hero7 is clearly sharper, however, while the image of the Hero8 appears very blurred in several areas. The image of this tree shows a similar result. All in all, I have to say that no progress could be made with the night photos.
With this, I would like to say goodbye for today. If the video was interesting for you, give me a like as feedback, and see you next time.